Well, I like the virtual roundtable experience, especially because during the COVID times, we have not that many options, right? And having this opportunity also keep some colleagues and experts in international monetary transfers connected and sharing their research approaches and research results. So I like it in that sense. Nonetheless, I always like the face-to-face in-person interactions, because you can see all the time how people is reacting to what you are saying, and you can see if they have any questions, and then it's easier and more organic to connect with them and imagine, they might be thinking this, so let me add this type of information to the presentation. But I think in general, I like the experience, and it was important for me to connect with other colleagues that have some points of view in common, but there were other things that I learned from them. Well, so one of the topics that I was presenting, it was about the remittances flows to Cuba during COVID-19 pandemic. And I think that something important here is to understand that previous COVID-19 pandemic, there has been a continuous exodus of Cuban people to the United States and to Spain, to other countries in the world, right? Mainly to the United States. But at the same time, remittance flows have been increasing to Cuba. And parallel to that, there has been an increase in the emergent private sector on the island. So I see that these phenomena are connected. And so previous research have shown that some Cuban diaspora members send remittances or send investment to the island to support the emerging private sector. So during the last 10 years, the remittance flows have been increasing on the island. However, with the COVID-19 pandemic, so there have been a fall in remittance transfers. And I would say that it has to be with three main elements. The first one is that COVID-19 pandemic has impacted on the Cuban diaspora's economy. And in fact, we know that around 65% of all Cuban Americans living in South Florida, they have been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. And this information is from the 2020 FIU Cuba poll. So we know that while Cuban Americans who normally send remittances to Cuba, they wanted to send remittances, they have to stop because they needed that money to survive to the pandemic. So that's one of the reasons. The second reason is the increase in unemployment in the United States, where the biggest Cuban diaspora community live. And the third point is the restrictions on remittances. During the current Donald Trump administration, there has been some restrictions regarding the amount of remittances to be sent to Cuba. There is a limit of 1,000 every 3 months to the Cuban family living on the island. And it's just Cuban Americans, they just can send to one close family members. And we know that families in Cuba are not nuclear, so that means that it's not just the close family. There are many houses in Cuba where live the grandparents, the aunts and cousins, and many people together. So 1,000 every 3 months is not enough. And the type of restrictions through the formal channels have been impacted on the amount of remittances to the island. At the same time, there is more recently restrictions to the Western Union operations in Cuba, and for sure that has been decreasing the size of remittances to the island through the formal channels. But at the same time, there has been, due to the pandemic, there has been travel restrictions to the island. So we know that a great amount of remittances enter to the islands through mulas, the people who bring the money and products to be sold in Cuba, or they just bring the remittances, which are informal channels. But due to the travel restrictions during this year, they have been the numbers of mullahs arriving to the country is limited as well. So those are three points why remittances of flows have been decreasing in Cuba: the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, the restrictions on remittances, and the travel restrictions as well. And another point I wanted to highlight about my presentation is the potentials of the digital transfers and the cryptocurrency on the island. Cuban using cryptocurrencies, even though the country has a limited access to the internet, and even though many people does not know what cryptocurrency means, but there has been some initiative emerging during the last months and the last years as well. And some of the enthusiasts of the cryptocurrency world in Cuba, they say that this is an option to send cryptocurrencies as like crypto remittances to Cuba, because they don't have to deal with the restrictions that the US embargo imposed remittances to the island. What I found interesting from the other panelists is their approaches to the relationship between remittances and social protests. So I have read before about that, but I found that even though they have similar interests on the relationship between the two variables, their approaches are different. Something that I learned from there is that not all the countries collect the same data, and not all the institutions and countries are interested on the same type of relationships and information. So sometimes it's difficult to compare the validity between some studies, but something that I learned is that it's really, really interesting and important to learn about the methodologies on how to manage data, to see the relationship between remittances and social protests. And also a thought that I had from there is that while I haven't explored that relationship, this is important. And I think that while like an impact of COVID-19 pandemic might be, or in fact is, an impact on the economy in Cuba. There is an economic crisis right now, and at the same time, we know that when there is economic stability, many times there is also like political instability and increase in social protest. And while I haven't explored the relationship between remittances and social protest, I would say that the impact of COVID-19 pandemic will increase migration in the near future, that will increase remittances, and the economic crisis on the island will increase for sure the social protest and political instability. So that was an interesting thought that I had while I was listening to them. So I feel enthusiastic about the opportunity of share points of view, my research progress with not only other academics, but also other experts on international monetary transfer, remittances, investment. So I think IMTC is an opportunity, it's a platform that allows us to not only share our thoughts, but also learn from other people who has experience. So I'm very looking forward to keep participating in IMTC events.